Another survey question, clickers out for getting the room's opinion on the consequences. What's at stake if indeed, as His Excellency says, this problem is not tackled? What's at stake if the dark fleet continues unchecked? 10 seconds. Collapse of maritime rules, major oil spill risk, or distorted energy? What's the biggest at stake? Distorted energy markets. Welcome the view in the room there. So a major oil spill we have seen in, I think there was the Malacca Straits or somewhere off the coast of Malaysia in recent years, that two dark fleet vessels ran into each other with their transponders off. That's a problem. Let's go bring up our three special guests visiting. Caroline Yang, CEO of Hong La Marine and former president of the Singapore Shipping Association, if you would take your spot at one of the panels or one of the podiums. And Shrikant Vaidya, former chairman of IndianOil Corporation. Shrikant, if you would also take a podium. And Captain Rishi Nyati, CEO of Emarat Maritime, a UAE-based company in the shipping space. Of course, all of these distinguished panelists are very experienced in this area, and we very much welcome their views. Thank you for coming up. Caroline, I'm going to kick off with you in terms of reaction to some of the voting that you've seen, particularly from a Singaporean perspective. Of course, you are the world's leading bunker hubs, massive under anchorage shipping there, but also the biggest collection of dark fleet. You can see it from your window. I mean, I was in Singapore 2 weeks ago, and literally all the ships are just sitting right there under anchorage. But most of the dark fleet tend to be hovering in that corner of the world. How big a problem is it? Is the problem overstated? Your thoughts?
Okay, I have to say that the problem is overstated. I think the ships that you see in the anchorage, they are all good ships. I want to say that for the oil tankers, it is about 20%, but for the global fleet in the world, it is about 2%. But we do see that if you talk about the incident that you mentioned.
Just hold the mic as close as you can.
Yeah. So the incident that happened on the two ships that collided, it did happen, I think, in Indonesian waters. So I think it is not a Singapore issue, as His Highness, His Excellency has mentioned. It is a collective responsibility and the willpower to take actions to prevent these dark fleet from coming into port. So I think when you look at ship profiling before they come into port, how do you go for enhanced inspections? You look at the AIS shutting off the history, the spoofing of the AIS, the STS transfers that they do, the verifiable P&I coverage, and a few other factors that you can actually profile these ships. And when they come into port, then you do the enhanced inspection.
But you still sort of are advocating that it's not as big a problem as is being perceived.
I think it is a problem. It is a big problem. And I think that is the global maritime community position. But is it a bigger problem in Singapore? I would disagree with that.
Shrikant, India, of course, is one of the biggest importers of Russian oil, which is sanctioned by the G7. So by default, you are contributing to the opportunity to develop the dark fleet by importing lots and lots of sanctioned oil. That's just a thesis. I'm not advocating it, but I wanted to get your opinion on it, because nothing seems to be impacting the slowdown of the growth of the dark fleet. And from an India perspective, your thoughts of why nothing's impacting it, and will India continue to do what they do?
Okay, just before I go.
The microphone is close.
Before I go to your question directly, I just want to say that whenever sanctions and restrictions are imposed, an alternative route develops. This is very natural. Like in 2010, we had this Iran oil for goods that emerged as an alternate. And same way now it is emerging. Those sanctions and restrictions are very good in intent. They don't really fulfill the requirements. Now in the accountability chain, I can say the chain of accountability to prevent dark fleet, there are 9 elements I can list out, starting from the producer, the ship owners, the regulators, the agencies which insure them, the ports, the regulator authorities, so on and so forth. So I think every chain has to be tightened, every link has to be tightened, and the moment one of the link goes loose, this dark fleet problem goes up. In fact, when that survey was there, His Excellency said that 60% agreed for the dark fleet is a problem, but you should also see nearly 40% didn't see it as a problem. So my point is, this is the outcome of sanctions, and we need to tackle it at the very root of it. As far as the point of you have said about India, most of the oil which we got as Indian Oil, we are a national oil company. So we did a huge amount of due diligence because we don't want to get swayed by the price part of it. So with full due diligence, we managed to get the right fleet, the clean fleet, as I can say, to get the oil.
Captain Rishi Nyati, you are an operator of ships, you are sailing. Your thoughts on it, is it as big a problem as the headlines are giving it every day, or how do you perceive this as a challenge?
Good morning, Assalamu alaikum. Nice to be in Fujairah. It's a lot cooler than Dubai. We run a ship owning company, ship management company called Emarat Maritime, based in Dubai. We run oil tankers, 9 oil tankers. For us, with regards to dark fleet, our primary focus is making sure we are in compliance by obviously not touching barrels which have sanctions or price caps. But more than that, what we are doing is for ship-to-ship operations, making sure that the ships that we are interfacing with are also not sanctioned. The oil origin is not sanctioned as well. So that's a part of our due diligence, being a ship owner and an operator of tankers, is not just not carrying sanctioned oil or price cap oil, but also making sure that the ships that we interface with and the oil that we get does not come from sanctioned entities.
Do you see any progression, Captain, in the enforcement? We started the year with the end of the Biden administration identifying a number of new ships to sanction, and the expectation was that that would have a real impact in curtailing, and then through the year we've seen it's been a fairly non-effective. Is there a progression now with the new administration of the US policing this more robustly? Do you feel that as a ship operator?
So first, a disclaimer, Emarat Maritime does not carry any sanctioned oil or call any countries with or without price cap. But
you still have to comply, as you said.
Correct,
so
correct.
You have to read the regulations, you have to understand the regulations.
Correct. So I was just going to the next point, is that I agree with Mr. Shrikant. And to the best of my knowledge, Russian molecules are not sanctioned as long as you're not a part of G7 and as long as you're not taking insurance and other services from G7 countries. There is, to the best of my knowledge, there is no sanctions against Russian molecules into a third country which does not take services from G7 countries. So there is a fine line, and there's a reason why Americans and Europeans have done this, because they want this oil to move. The Americans want this oil to move because if you completely remove close to about 6 million barrels of Russian oil, which works out to be more than 14% of seaborne oil, there will be significant price inflation of oil, which would be felt by the American and European consumers. So again, Emarat Maritime does not do it. However...
Say it one more time, please.
Yeah,
Just joking.
I want to be very clear here.
I wanted just to get another question up on the board. Why should legitimate ports and shippers care about what is ultimately G7 sanctions, OECD? Why should legitimate ports and shippers care about these dark fleet, the scale of them, reputational damage, legal and sanctions. 10 seconds, please, on that. Legal sanctions exposure or crew safety. Are these the reasons? Which one is the most legitimate reason? And get the views on that. 62% legal and sanctions exposure. A good reason to care. It costs a lot of money if you violate, potentially. But Caroline, I wanted to get your thoughts on, is the Dark Fleet simply another sort of consequence of what is a Western G7 concern? That this is not a global South concern, this is not an Asia concern, that you're having to absorb what is a G7 Western concern, and that's creating a bigger Dark Fleet, but ultimately not a problem, not an issue for Asia and this global South. Just comment on that idea.
Yeah, first point, you are right, it is a G7 plus sanctions. It is not actually a UN sanctions. It is a G7 plus sanctions. And actually, if it is not UN sanctions, they are not going against the UNCLOS. But it is sanctions, and many countries have agreed to these sanctions. And because they have agreed to these sanctions, they need to comply. So all the measures taken to prevent the Dark Fleet from actually flourishing, it is the duty of every single port and every single flag industry, and also the IMO.
Shrikant, your thoughts on, just again from an India perspective, usually, I mean, India is a non-aligned country, but ultimately it walks in a certain way with all of the G7 Western democracies and all of that stuff. But India is an outlier here. Does it perceive it that way? Does it perceive it as not their issue, not their sanctions?
I don't think it's an outlier. Outlier will be a very hard term. As he was saying, that
well, you import X million barrels of sanctioned, Western G7 sanctioned oil every day.
See, actually, we have always said that the oil that we buy is purely a commercial decision. It is not a political decision. So when we buy oil from Russia, we buy it because of the commercial reason. Now there is a different color being given to it, a political color. So it was, see, as you are well aware, before 2022, we hardly had 0.2% of the Russian oil in the Indian kitty because it didn't make commercial sense. But post the Ukraine war, because of the discounts, the oil suddenly made sense, and it now is about 30-35%. So it was purely a commercial decision, which we are, bound to help the people of the country to get cheap oil. So that was the reason why we went for that oil, and that is the only reason that we are buying for it. We are not going for any other political angle into this, because that is reading something into it which is not actually there.
Captain, your thoughts on the survey result there? Why should shippers and ports be concerned or care is legal and sanctions exposure. Is that working as a sufficient incentive? It would appear that the scale of the Dark Fleet growth would indicate that not too concerned.
So again, I want to say that the Russian molecules are not sanctioned. They are, if you are a G7 country, then you do not import the Russian oil. You can still import Russian gas. However, if any ship takes the services of a G7 country, be it a broker, be it an insurer, then that's not allowed.
And there is a price cap as well.
And there's a price cap as well if you want to take services of the G7 countries. If you're doing business which does not involve G7 countries at all, whether it's your insurer, whether it's your broker, whether it's your crew, you can carry Russian molecules at whatever price. This is my understanding. Again, for the record, Emarat Maritime does not carry any of this. But my point is...
Are you sure?
100%. 100%, yeah. Most of my ships are trading in America.
I'm only joking.
So again, going back, there is a reason why the G7 countries have done this. A parallel case is Iranian molecules. Iranian molecules are sanctioned. And India cannot import Iranian molecules.
But ultimately, it would appear at the moment not enforced. Let's go to the last question, on why has sanction enforcement failed? And that's not just in current times. Generally, it seems to be a failure. But in this instance, why, 10 seconds, has sanctions failed? West wants oil to flow, which we've heard from the panel. Global South resistance. Ports and others, weak enforcement tools. West wants oil to flow. What did you vote, Caroline? Why do you think these sanctions generally are not having the outcome they're desired?
I didn't vote because I believe it is a mixture of all three.
All three, right.
Yes.
So no, but if you had to vote one over the other?
If I have to vote, I would think that in every sanctions, how do you make it successful? It has to be, the enforcement has to be swift, stern, robust, and continuous. And I think that's not happening on a global basis.
Not to Singaporean standards. You guys tend to do that stuff pretty well. Shrikant, your final words on the answer of this survey?
Actually, that's question number 4. The number 1, the West also wants the oil to flow.
Yeah.
Because that will create a huge volatility in the oil market, and it is in everybody's
And in that regard, they're being successful. If that's the subcontext, the oil is flowing, everybody's happy, prices are relatively moderate.
You said it. Actually, the system has adjusted itself to whatever sanctions we have said, because the fundamental reason is we can't just wish away the Russian oil.
Yes.
There'll be huge volatility in the market, and that's the reality.
Well, nobody wants that. Captain, last word to you.
100% point number 1. West wants the oil to flow. It's very easy. If West does not want the Russian molecules to flow, they can sanction it like they've done with Iranians. They've not done it.
They've not done it, and that's clear, and so everybody get on with business. Thank you so much to our panelists. I wanted to say thank you to Caroline Yang, our award winner last night. Congratulations. And Shrikant, Vaidya as well. Congratulations. Thank you for your time. And Captain Rishi Nyati, thank you so much for joining us.